I know you like that. I know you like that.
Welcome back, everybody, to TFM Live, the official podcast of thefullmountmma.com. And I say welcome back because we've been gone for a couple weeks. I'm Brian Coyle, joined alongside Sean Stanley. And Sean, the computer that we usually recorded on was not agreeing with anything we were trying to do for, I don't know, is it 3 weeks or so now? We had to take it back out behind the building, do a little office space management to it. But now we're back, and I'm very, very excited.
Oh, no, definitely. I mean, it's good to be back. I was going to say, you may want to introduce our names again because we've been gone for a while. They may have forgotten who the host and co-host of TFM is.
Yes. I mean, again, I am Brian Coyle. He is Sean Stanley. We both write for thefullmountmma.com, which covers everything in the UFC and beyond in the world of mixed martial arts. And the most recent thing that we should talk, we have a lot of stuff to cover. There's just a lot of stuff that has happened since we've been on last time. And we should start with the most recent thing, UFC 191. And we had talked about the last time we had gotten together, all the momentum that the UFC had throughout the summer, after UFC 189, and then Ronda Rousey's domination in Brazil. This card was set up to be, in my opinion, an okay card. But it has the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world, at least in my opinion, in Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. Yes. The card under-delivered, just to put it bluntly. I mean, I think there's no way to put it otherwise. Would you agree?
No, I agree 100%, especially the main event I thought would have been a lot better contest. And to me, watching it, just everything on that card, that was just kind of like the icing on the cake of that card.
Yeah. Let's run through Corey Anderson with a win over the how do you pronounce Jan Blachowicz' name? Or I even forget.
Actually, I think you got it right. I think it's Blachowicz.
Okay, because, well, honestly, he doesn't deserve to have his name said on the podcast because that was just he was just getting beaten down for 3 rounds by Corey Anderson.
Yeah.
So that was a buzzkill to start off. Paige Van Zandt started us off nice by with her win over Miss Chambers in the to kick off the show, and she looked dominant, but Van Zandt's got to go up against tougher competition because Alex Chambers is not somebody that. Well, unfortunately, it's going to be a relevant competition for her for where she wants to go.
Yeah, this was kind of like a handpicked opponent. The Chambers didn't like somebody that comes at her, an aggressive style opponent, which is what Van Zandt is. So it was almost basically a notch under her belt just to get her some more experience. Again, they're bringing her along very slow, which they don't have to bring her along too quick right now because you got Rousey, you got Holm, you got some other ladies right now, and she's so young that you're looking at her to maybe be the future of your women's division.
Yes, because when you look at Rousey and you look at Holm, everybody in 135, at 115, you also got, like in Van Zandt's division, you've got Joanna Jędrzejczyk, Joanna champion.
Nope.
So there is a big star there. And Van Zandt, like you said, only 21 years old. She's really young to be as good as she is right now. So I think it's a smart thing to kind of bring her along slowly. Claudia Gadelha, Joanna champion, those aren't people that she should be fighting just yet. But so it was something good to start off the card, and then it kind of buzzkilled. And then I knew, strangely enough, I thought this was the best fight of the night, even though it barely lasted that long. And Jimmy Manuwa and Anthony Rumble Johnson. Anthony Rumble Johnson is the scariest man in the UFC. Like, bar none, Rumble is that dude who, I mean, with all the stuff surrounding him and all like the outside the octagon focus on him for his anger issues and the domestic violence allegations and all of that stuff involving Rumble Johnson, when he got into the octagon, he laid out Jimmy Manuwa in one of the most vicious knockouts that I've seen in a while.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It was scary. And that goes to show, I mean, that should vindicate Daniel Cormier a little bit because, I mean, everyone kind of took the light heavyweight division to like, with John Jones gone, it's not really a big deal. But when you see a guy like Rumble do the devastation that he can do, and you saw what Daniel Cormier did to him, which was neutralize that knockout power, I gained a lot. You gain a lot more respect for Cormier as what the champion that he is. And we'll talk about Cormier a little bit later on in the show with his fight against Alexander Gustafsson coming up in October. And then as you moved up the card, I was really excited about Mir Arlovsky.
Yeah.
Everybody was really excited. It's 10 years in the
100%
making.
was looking forward to that.
They were supposed to fight until Frank Mir had the motorcycle accident just days before. And, I mean, we shouldn't have all gotten our hopes up that much because that was just, I mean, I love both fighters. That was a bad fight. It was just not interesting at all.
No, definitely. But when you looked at what had happened previously in their fights, you thought this was going to be a great fight. But then when you look back on it, I think it was Dana White or somebody tweeted out that both of them are fighting not to lose this fight because they know how important this fight is. And
yes.
Unfortunately, it set up for the fight that we got.
Yes. When two guys fight not to lose, you're going to get a crappy fight.
Actually, you know what? I think it was you.
Oh, that tweeted that out?
I believe it was you, bro, that tweeted that out.
Yeah. I mean, literally, that's what it was. I mean, because it's so big for Pitbull because he was supposed to get the next title shot, and then they're doing Velasquez and Verdum again. Which, I mean, depending on who you ask, is in March, or if you ask the champion Verdum, he's ready to fight January, February. So I don't know what the heck's going on there, but I know those two guys are getting Velasquez is getting his immediate rematch. And, I mean, with Stipe Miocic or Andre Arlovsky, Miocic, you couldn't decide to go back, and they went with Velasquez anyway. But Mir, on this kind of comeback tour after he viciously knocked out Todd Duffy.
Yeah.
And that was a Frank Mir that was just trying to play it safe. Arlovsky looked like he underestimated Mir, and it just sucked. I mean, I hate that's not the technical term to describe it, but that's the term that you should use to describe that fight. And it was really disappointing. And like, if you listen to our earlier podcast, I was nothing but positive about single thing that the UFC had done, and people were starting to think, oh, I'm just positive about everything, but that was just not a good fight. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, up to this event, I think it was a lot of positives for UFC.
Yeah,
and this one card really, besides your Van Zant showing, your Rumble
knockout.
Yeah, knockout, and I mean, just the dominance, that we'll get to here in a minute with the main event. I mean, other than that, there wasn't much to discuss after this card was over.
Yeah, and let's jump into the main event. And we just want to remind everybody, we write for the FullMountMMA.com, and I just wrote a piece yesterday, or 2 days ago, actually, when we're recording this on a Saturday. Hopefully it will go up today. I think it will. Sean will get on it. Right, Sean?
100%.
I wrote a column called Respect the Mouse, and I said, Demetrius Johnson is too good for his own good. And what I mean by that is, in my opinion, Mighty Mouse is the pound-for-pound best fighter in the UFC. Just bar none. Technically, the way his octagon control, how fast he is, the way he pushes the pace, makes his opponents uncomfortable. He's got good knockout power for a guy that size. His submission game is strong. He can do everything well. And not many fighters can do that. But the problem is there's nobody in that division, and which we saw with John Dodson, who, I mean, may have been thrown off by the fact that, his child was born 3 days before, or whatever the case may be, and people who are saying, like, oh, he shouldn't have gone to, and just shut up. Okay. You don't have to say anything at that point. I'm not going to listen to your opinion. The guy, I mean, it was bad timing, but Dodson was prepared for this fight. He looked serious. He was not his jovial self. He wanted to go after Mighty Mouse. And he tried, but he couldn't do it. Demetrius Johnson pushed the pace early, tired him out, was just better, racked up points after points after points, and it was over. People were leaving. It was not competitive at all. And it couldn't have been what Dana White wanted from the main event of UFC 191.
No, most definitely. And then, I mean, and then when you look at that main event, I mean, I think the prelims, I believe, was the worst drawing prelims on Fox Sports 1 since they started airing them. So this whole card in a nutshell underperformed for Dana White and the UFC. So it's going to be interesting to see how they're going to try to rebound. But like you're saying, Mighty Mouse was just, I mean, he just showed how much better he is, I guess, than anybody in that division, because everybody's saying Dotson was probably the closest to him. And I guess that infuriated Mighty Mouse, because he went out there and just gave a performance that I don't know. I mean, just every turn. I mean, and the scary part about it is he still has room for improvement.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the most scariest thing is about this is, as good as he is, there's still more that he can that can come to him skill level wise. I think he was talking about some of his strikings and things like that he's still working on, and I just can't think that this guy can get any better, and there's still a ceiling for him to elevate.
Yeah, like you just said, to pile on, Mike Bowen tweeted out at Mike Bowen MMA, said that UFC 191's reported gate was 1.3 million. It's the lowest for a Las Vegas-based UFC pay-per-view card since UFC 49 in August of 2004. Johnson also holds the record for the lowest Las Vegas pay-per-view gate and the worst-selling pay-per-view of the Ultimate Fighter era, according to SB Nation. And, I mean, I don't blame it on the fact that he's a small fighter. I don't blame it on the fact that he's 125 pounds, which a lot of people do. I blame it on the fact that he's literally got nobody that can touch him. And the best way to fix this, and this is what I wrote in my column on the fullmountmma.com, the super fight with 135 has to happen next. Whether it's Dominic Cruz or TJ Dillashaw, which is going to be a headlining fight of a free card, by the way, a Fox Sports 1 card in Boston, which is ridiculous, by the way. That's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
But that's the way to do it next. And that fight should not be on pay-per-view. It should be on Fox. And it sucks because Mighty Mouse is so damn good. But, I mean, if this continually happens, and we had this happen the last time Mighty Mouse fought too, you have to get him exposure. Because still everyone knows who Conor McGregor is. Everybody knows who Jose Aldo is. Everybody knows who Ronda Rousey is. People even know who Joanna Jędrzejczyk is, Uriah Faber, Chad Mendes, like Frankie Edgar, all these names. A lot of people don't know who Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson is. If you give him exposure on television, free television, that people can just tune in and say, hey, wow, he's really good. Oh, when's he fighting next? You slowly can build somebody up, and you can tell the story, to borrow a wrestling term, if you will, of Mighty Mouse. And you can build him up, and then you can create this pay-per-view, like, giant. You can do this. They just have to be patient with him. And I think it's going to take a thing on their part to realize that, okay, pay-per-view stuff's not working with Mighty Mouse. We can't have a main event. Why don't we put him on Fox, his next fight, either against Henry Cejudo or the 135 champ, have that happen, maybe do another one, and then let's put him back on pay-per-view and see if it changes, you know?
No, I agree with you, Brian, but also I think UFC underpromoted this with Mighty Mouse. I mean, when you look at the Aldo McGregor, even when it was changed up, and every commercial on Fox Sports 1, every other commercial was, you know, Conor McGregor. Every other, you didn't really get that with Johnson, and I just think that that's part of this. I mean, he has no competition, and they tried to build this fight up as much as possible. But again, if you're knowing of MMA, you know Dotson has only fought 3 times since the last time. I'm sorry, Dotson fought 3 times since the last fight with Johnson because of nagging knee injuries and things like that. So this was not the same Dotson that you had in the first fight. As much as they wanted to build it up to be that, if you follow MMA at all, you kind of could tell how this was going to go. Yeah,
I mean, and it's sad because I really love the way Mighty Mouse fights. But until they take the time to build him like the way they should and the dominant champion that he is. Because he's got a personality to him. He's a smart guy. If you watch in interviews and you watch in like the countdowns and stuff, he's a good dude. Like, he's a fun like personality. But they just haven't exposed him enough. And I think it's going to be – they're going to have to take a step back and figure it out and make it work and be able to promote him like the other fighters that they do on their roster. Remember – this is TFM Live, if you've never heard us before, part of the FullMountMMA.com, the official podcast, if you will. I don't know of any other podcasts that come out of us, so this is the official one. And
not the knockoff.
No, it's 100% real, and it's 100% spectacular, man.
Yes, in our own right, we are the greatest.
Yes. we don't like to, promote ourselves.
We won't toot our own horn, toot toot.
Yes, exactly. I mean, we have to, because like Mighty Mouse, we're underappreciated and undervalued, but we'll get there. We just need to be, But remember, we're free. You don't have to pay to listen to us, so you can do that.
There you go.
We got so many things to talk about. So many things have happened. So many fights have been made. I don't know where to go next. So we'll talk about Cormier and Gustafsson a little bit more as we get closer. October 3rd is UFC 192. But I just did want to mention the fact that card has Cormier and Gustafsson. I think Cormier will actually win that one. I'm surprised they gave Gustafsson was the guy here to get that title shot. And then you get Ryan Bader and Rashad Evans, which I think is going to be a good one myself. But what I wanted to talk about real quick, Johnny Hendricks and Tyrone Woodley, that's a fight of the night in a nutshell, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest way to put it. Big Rig and the Chosen One going at it. And the reason why they're going at it, because Robbie Lawler gets Carlos Condit now in January instead of November because of Robbie Lawler's hand injury. And replacing them is Ronda Rousey and Holly Holm in Australia at the Etihad Stadium in Melbourne. And it's weird how we've gone from, like, they were going to put that one in the stadium and have a Lawler and Condit headline, but how come it now kind of feels bigger to me, even though, I mean, I love Lawler and Condit's fighting styles, just like Hendricks and Woodley. That welterweight division is just so loaded, and every fight that's happening in there is going to be amazing. But I feel like this is the perfect way to test Ronda Rousey's strong power now that she's trying to fill up a stadium, trying to break the UFC attendance record that was set in Toronto or Montreal. It was up in Canada, where George St. Pierre and Jake Shields. And do you think that Holly Holm, number one, deserved this opportunity to fight Ronda Rousey? And number two, can Rousey herself carry that pay-per-view, UFC 193, into what the UFC wants it to be?
Short answer for Holm would be no. Watching her last fights, but again, I mean, Dana White wants to get somebody else beside Miesha Tate's already had 2 shots at the title. So, I guess Holm's the next viable option. I mean, again, if anybody has a fighter's chance to beat Rousey, I'm guessing Holm with her boxing background, if she can, use some of that. But I just think Rousey's just too good to. She's gonna know how to strategize. She's gonna take Holm down. She's the ultimate fighter. Not to take any terms from UFC, but she in that division, there's nobody there that can take her down. And I just know this might be the problem, that I think she can draw, but I think the opponent in this case might. I mean, if they go to this fight, they're going there to watch Ronda Rousey, not Ronda Rousey fight Holly Holm.
Now, and I think Amanda Nunes has a complaint here that she was.
Oh yeah, no, yeah.
And I think Tate, I get it. I mean, if you want to do Tate Rousey at 200, if you're planning on the Cyborg fight, which I don't know when that is going to happen. I don't know if it's going to happen.
That might happen at 300.
Yeah, at this point, it's ridiculous. But everyone's talking about Holly Holm's boxing background, but we don't know like how competitive that sport is. honestly.
Yep, you're true.
And not to take anything away from Holly Holm, she's an incredible athlete. But this is the UFC, and she's only been fighting. She's got a 9-0 record, but she only had like 2 fights in the UFC.
Yeah, and they were pretty bland fights.
Yes, and you're gonna get Ronda Rousey, who's probably number 2 in the pound for pound rankings if I was doing them, and it's gonna be a bloodbath. I mean, at least Betch Kohea was a mixed martial artist.
Yeah.
Holly Holm is not prepared for this. And I think if you'd given her 3 or 4 more fights, and I think she would have been ready to go, at least you could throw a puncher's chance on her. But I don't think so, because the way I look at it is Rousey has cleared out the division so much that now you're going down to Holly Holm, and she's going to jump into a swimming pool, and there's going to be 50 sharks surrounding her. That's the way. Like, there's no way she gets out of this.
Well, here's my question, because I got a question for you here.
Sure.
Now, with Van Zandt, they're taking it slow because she's exciting in her style.
Well, Van Zandt at 115 and Rousey at 135.
Oh, no, I know that, but what I was getting at is Holly Holm now, she was like the golden banner coming in, and it seemed like they were going to take her slow. She's had 2 very boring fights. Now, all of a sudden, she's thrown to the sharks.
Yes.
Instead of progressing her through the thing, it's like they're just saying, all right, this experiment, it may not be what we thought it was. Let's just go ahead and give her shot, and let's get rid of her. That's what it feels like. Whereas Van Zandt, they're going to let her progress because she has that exciting style. Holm comes in. They thought she was going to be an exciting style. Hasn't progressed that way. Now, all of a sudden, hey, here's Ronda Rousey. Good luck.
I think it's exactly what you said. I think Paige Van Zandt in 115, for example, is an exciting fighter, is a personality, something they can build off of. And they want to protect her like they've protected Conor McGregor all the way up.
Yep.
Because and anybody who says, oh, no, I love McGregor as a fighter. I love him as a personality. But he was protected so much going up. And they don't and the UFC is smart. They want to protect their investment. Holly Holm, I think they brought in, and then they saw what she was in the octagon, was like, well, that is not what we thought she was. But hell, if we throw her in and she somehow beats Ronda Rousey, it's Buster Douglas Tyson. Yeah. And if not, then she's just thrown aside, and then Ronda continues to be Ronda, and then you figure it out from there. So I think it's more of the fact that Holly Holm hasn't been what the UFC has wanted as a personality. But hey, if Ronda Rousey slips and gets hurt, and Holm can take advantage of that, that's the only way I see that fight going in Holm's direction.
Yeah, if you watch Rousey, she's going to strategize to take her down and eliminate the even chance that she might land that lucky punch. Because that is honestly, to me, the only way Holm has a chance in this fight is to hope that Rousey, for some reason, decides to stand up with her, and maybe she lands one. And I don't even know, just because she comes from a boxing background don't mean that she has better striking than Ronda Rousey, but that's her only chance.
Yeah, and we saw Rousey strike against Kohea, and it's been like this thing where it's been this secret weapon of hers because we haven't really seen it. And Ronda can throw. She's not just going to flip you and break your arm. She can throw hands. And I think Holm's in for a rude awakening on UFC 193. On that card, of course, is Joanna Jędrzejczyk, as well, defending her title, strangely enough, against, and I'm going to destroy this name because she came out of nowhere, literally, Valerie Letourneau from Canada. And I think Joanna Jędrzejczyk is going to destroy her, yes. Given the fact that Letourneau was not even ranked before this fight. And I think it was the fact that Claudia Gadella's hand is going to keep her out until February is the reason why they kind of put this in between that eventual fight. Also in that card, Mark Hunt and Antonio Bigfoot Silva. And again, they're revisiting these heavyweight fights that were awesome from back in the day. And I think when there's not really that much on the line, like there was with the Arlovsky and Mir fight, I think this is going to be fun. I think it's going to be awesome. And
definitely any heavyweight fight is going to be good, especially when they're fighting for really just maybe move up in the rankings in the heavyweight.
Pride.
But they don't have a title shot on the line, so they're going to throw down. They don't, like Arlovsky and Mir are coming, let's call it what it is. They're coming closer and closer to the end of their careers, and they know this may have been their last shot at getting that title shot, so they both fought conservative. And this fight, I think they're just going to come out throwing.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm surprised because there were rumors. The rumors have been circulating that Fedor Emelianenko will be in the UFC. I mean, Dana White keeps saying no, but it's eventually going to happen, it seems like. But this was kind of an opportunity where I'm thinking, why didn't they have Fedor on this card if they were really trying to get this deal done? And then you want to fill up a stadium, you bring back the Last Emperor on this card, and then the UFC 194 card, which I want to talk about just for the fact that it's so freaking stacked. But this is a card that I don't know if they can do it right now the way it is. This is a real test of Ronda Rousey's drawing power. If they can do what they set out to do and fill up this stadium in Melbourne. There's also Michael Bisping and Robert Whittaker as the opener or the second fight on the card. And I just love watching Bisping fight, so I'm excited for that as well. But why don't we take a quick break, and when we come back, we can. Oh, I forgot to mention too, Ronda Rousey doing a remake of the Patrick Swayze classic Roadhouse. Made my day a couple days ago, by the way. That movie should not be remade by anybody except Ronda Rousey in the cooler spot. This is going to be really fun, and I am really excited because that movie, as long as she gets to rip somebody's throat out at the end of the movie like Patrick Swayze does, I will be excited. Because Roadhouse is an American classic, and anybody who wants to debate otherwise, you're probably right, but I'll tell you that you're wrong.
It was one of the best fighting movies ever.
Oh, absolutely.
Those fight scenes were awesome.
That and Kickboxer, which is being remade.
Yep.
So when we come back, we'll talk a little UFC 194. We'll talk about what's going on in January. And, we'll go around the rest of the UFC news from the past couple of weeks on TFM Live, the official podcast of the FullMountMMA.com.
For the latest in news and rumors, go to the FullMountMMA.com.
Welcome back, everybody, to FullMountMMA.com. Brian Coyle joined alongside Sean Stanley with the official podcast of the FullMountMMA.com. So we write things about the UFC and MMA, and you can read them right there. It's nice and easy. You type it in, you click. It couldn't be easier. And you can listen to us on SoundCloud and on YouTube, this podcast. So, and if you're listening right now, you've already figured it out. So it's pretty easy to do. I wanted to get to what I think will be the best weekend in UFC history, Sean. And that will be the weekend of December 11th through the 13th. Because there is so many good fights, and it's not fair to the rest of the calendar because this is just the most awesome thing in the history of the UFC. The Ultimate Fighter finale, Friday, December 11th. And this is great. I like what they're doing, putting it before the main card on Saturday night instead of what they did with UFC 189 where they put it on Sunday.
Yeah.
Chad Mendes and Frankie Edgar are fighting on free TV. How is that happening, number one? And number two, what do you think of this fight? Because it's amazing. And the fact that we get to see this unfold basically a number one contenders bout for the featherweight title, with the exception if maybe, what goes on with the McGregor-Aldo fight if somebody gets an immediate rematch or not. What do you think of this, first of all?
Well, the fact that you're getting it for free, it makes it so much more enjoyable, too. But, you watched, again, like you're saying, this is a number one contenders match. And it's funny how the UFC has, I was looking at the cards and going, man, they had these stacked cards for like the last 2 months, and then now it's kind of thinning out. And then you look at December, and here comes another stacked weekend of UFC events. And the one thing that I'll get to the fight in a minute, but that I thought was funny was that they kind of, if you watched it, they thin out right when college football, NFL goes, because they know there's a lot of competition. College football's ending around the 11th, 12th area. You start getting into bowl season, and guess what? We got a stacked card. So whoever's in the UFC offices are at least looking ahead, and it's great. And then the fact that now Frankie Edgar, Chad Mendez, and then you have, like as you said, with Aldo McGregor, you have basically a number one contenders fight depending on the outcome of the McGregor fight. So, I mean, you have the next UFC main event probably already going to be slotted for you as soon as these cards are over.
Frankie Edgar and Chad Mendez. This is probably the fight that should have happened. Mendez coming off that really short training camp against McGregor.
Yep.
And I mean, people have been making excuses for Chad. He took the fight, he lost, so be it. Throw that out. Mendez and Edgar is what's really going to decide where they go next. And I'm excited to see the answer fight. Personally, for me, I'm a New Jersey guy. He's a Jersey guy at Tom's River. But it's going to be perfect. Like this, the way it's set up is just so good because you've got Edgar and Mendez. And I mean, Frank, when it comes to Mendez, the wrestling, the knockout power, and then Frankie's just so complete in every area. And it's funny because if you watch the Go Big event involving McGregor and about 18 other people like Rousey, Cowboy Cerrone, Rafael dos Anjos.
It was a big event.
Yes, it was. And if you haven't seen it, I recommend Googling and watching that entire press conference because it's just so enjoyable. And McGregor is throwing bows left and right at people. And then also we found out later on his fly was down during the entire thing, which, I mean, he can't write this. But it's funny because if you watched it, McGregor has a very heavy amount of respect for Frankie Edgar and now a little bit for Chad Mendez as well. He doesn't go after Edgar really at all. And he goes after Chad a little bit, but not as much because, I mean, he's been in the octagon with him. Mm-hmm. And then he throws Aldo under the bus, which we'll get to like over and over and over again. But that's a great fight. But can we talk about the fight that's also in that card? Because Tony Ferguson is a very good lightweight, but the guy he's facing, Khabib Nurmagomedov, is returning on the same card that Frankie Edgar and Chad Mendez are fighting on. And they're both free television. Like, this is insane. Khabib, if this guy didn't get hurt, this guy could be the lightweight champion right now. And I'm very excited to see him back. I mean, everyone always jokes about the time in his childhood, growing up in Russia, he wrestled the bear. But this guy could fight a bear. Like, he's lethal. And I'm excited to see Ferguson's really good, too. So that's going to be another great fight. Joe Lauzon and Evan Dunham are also on this card as well. And
Lauzon never gives a bad fight. I mean, it might be a short fight, but either way, it's going to be a slugfest.
Yeah, and Evan Dunham's coming off his win over Ross Pearson, who we saw beat Paul Felder last week. So Dunham's not a bad fighter either. This is the pre-card essentially to the main event on Saturday night. And I don't know, honestly, where to start because this is such a crazy, awesome card. Starting from the bottom, Frankie Sanz and Uriah Faber. That is the thing that will start the card. Just putting that out there. Damian Maia and Gunnar Nelson. Gunnar, I'm never happy in my face, but I'm actually happy Nelson. I mean, that guy looks like he's sleeping all of the time. It's ridiculous. And then you got Tisha Torres and Michelle Watterson fighting, and we get better and better. Ronaldo Jacare Souza and Yoel Romero, which that fight is going to be just fight of the night caliber stuff. I mean, we watched Romero you saw it live in person.
Yeah.
Yoel Romero.
Yep. And Machida.
Crazy stuff.
He took care of Machida easily.
Yeah, destroying the aura of Lyoto Machida. And then, that's a built-in number one contenders fight for the next fight that's on the card. Chris Weidman and Luke Rockhold, which is getting It's starting to build a little bit. These guys are going after each other. Rockhold, the former Strikeforce champion, Weidman undefeated, the Brazilian killer. I mean, that's just, the co-main event of the evening.
Bisping picked Rockhold to win, right?
What?
Bisping picked Rockhold to win yesterday.
Really?
Yep,
really?
on the UFC show yesterday on Fox.
Interesting. I think we should, and we'll make our predictions as the fights get closer.
Yep.
That's a very interesting, because Rockhold, I think, will pose the stiffest test to Chris Weidman, and that's saying something given the fact that the guy beat Anderson Silva twice. So, and then of course the main event of the evening, possibly the biggest fight in the history of the UFC. Knock on wood that nobody gets hurt again, because this needs to happen. Conor McGregor and Jose Aldo unify the featherweight title belts in the UFC. And it's funny because the way I watched Jose Aldo at that press conference, McGregor is just, he's a caricature of himself at this point. Yeah. And I can't imagine, it's going to get so big. If he beats Aldo, I think he'll just never sleep again. I think he'll just be on television talking about how great he is for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Because McGregor has gotten bigger since beating Mendez, and he's increasing his profile. He's on The Ultimate Fighter. He's doing all this crap. He's going back to Ireland for that fight where he's going to be revered as a god for the Duffy Poirier fight. And Jose Aldo, on the other hand, is doing nothing to promote this fight. Zip. Nada. He just does not care at all. And I don't know if that's a ploy by him, which is to not feed into the McGregor stuff. I don't know if he legitimately does not care. I don't know if this is his way of entering the octagon differently, because remember, this is in Vegas. This is not in Brazil, where all those title fights have been. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if he's disinterested. And then it's very a weird vibe coming out of Aldo and Aldo's camp coming into this fight. But if Jose Aldo is Jose Aldo, and this is going to be a mega fight in the making, and UFC 194 could be the biggest card of all time. What are your thoughts? I mean, I kind of just ran through that card real quick.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I mean, every fight could be fight of the night. You said, I think, fight of the night like 3 times as you were going through the card there. But every fight's there. But I thought what was funny is that this fight between McGregor and Aldo may be one of those fights to where, like, when somebody gets hurt, usually it's like the second fight or the second fight, the coming of the fight, is usually downplayed a little more because everybody's like, oh, I don't know. This one's actually seems like there's more on the line for this fight to happen, whereas, I mean, there's even more press going on. McGregor's a bigger star now. I don't know if Aldo needs to – this might be a ploy by UFC, too, to try to – so McGregor becomes – I'm using kind of wrestling terminology here, but – McGregor becomes that bigger-than-life, larger-than-life heel.
Yes.
To kind of get the sympathetic ploy on Aldo because he's just sitting there taking it.
Yeah, and I mean, the Go Big event, McGregor was freaking out because Aldo had to leave. He was the best man in a wedding in Brazil. So he had to leave, and McGregor's like, oh, wait till you hear to this. Like, what? This guy's leaving. And, like, he was freaking out about it.
Yeah.
And it's either love or hate with McGregor. That's the way. There's no middle ground when it comes to Conor McGregor as a fan, as just watching the sport. And I think you could be right there. Aldo's not a very sympathetic character, at least to me, as of now, because of all the weird stuff surrounding his camp in Brazil and the drug testing allegations, which was not good at all.
Nope.
And McGregor's brought it up, and he didn't put it in the most correct terms possible. But it's just, I don't know what's inside the mind of Jose Aldo, and I think that adds a little mystique to this fight. I really do. And I think, I mean, regardless of that fight, whether it delivers or not, that card, there's no way this is a bad card. Like, sometimes you look at a card and it's like, I don't know, man. I don't know if it'll be any good. By the way, Max Holloway and Jeremy Stevens are on this card. Just, randomly. They're there. So, and it seems like it's at the bottom of the card. And it's a really good featherweight fight.
Wow,
like, it's amazing.
It really is at the bottom of the card. I'm going through the card right now. It is the first match listed on this, like with the prelims and
John
everything. It is
McDessie's
the
on this
first
card
match.
after getting his jaw broken. Like Warley Alvarez and Colby Covington.
Yancy Medeiros.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be one of these things where even if the fight, the main event doesn't deliver, whether you're on the McGregor or the Aldo side, or whether it's just, I think it will, just the way these guys fight in general, because they're not going to be, on the ground for 5 minutes, like 5 rounds, like a GSP fight would be. So I think it's going to be awesome. And then
Let me ask you this, Brian.
Yeah.
How many of these fights do you actually think go to a decision?
I'm going to say that I think Torres and Watterson could go to a decision.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Maya and Nelson, I hope, goes to a decision, because those guys, I want to see them fight for 3 rounds because they're really good. Mm-hmm. But they're both very proficient on the ground. That's why I don't think somebody's going to get submitted. I think
Gotcha.
they're both very good. But other than that, I think everyone is going to be a stoppage.
And you know what's funny is, like, if you're in a boxing, and we'll get into this probably a little bit later, but if you look at this card and you're like, wait, every fight could be over quick. I'm not going to order it. I'm still ordering this one just because I want to see the endings. I want to see the finishes.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's going to be fun. It's just a fun card. And by the way, the week after, Rafael Dos Anjos and Donald Cowboy Cerrone are on free TV.
No, is that it?
Yeah, the next Saturday UFC fight night in Orlando.
That's that Orlando fight I'm heading up to.
See, this is great because you'll be there. TFM will be there. We'll get an in-person account of it, and we can talk about it on the podcast. Oh, yeah, by the way, the co-main event is Junior Dos Santos and Alistair Overeem.
Nate Diaz is on the card also.
Against Michael Johnson.
Yeah. Dalloway against Mark.
Yeah, I mean... And I talked about it. I wrote a piece on this on thefullmountmma.com, which you can find online. The UFC had to be smart going into football season. Yeah. And there are good cards, don't get me wrong. I think the Houston card is a fun card on a Saturday night. I think that a couple fight night cards are fun. And then the November card in Australia, which they could play around with time-wise if they wanted to. Mm-hmm. But in December, they just hit it out of the park. Yeah. And as long as everyone stays healthy, which of course is sometimes a problem, I think this could be something huge because there's not really any competition. I think there's a Jets-Cowboys Saturday night NFL game. I don't know when that is. I think it might be Dos Anjos and Cerrone, possibly. But I think it's one of those things where they won't have to worry about it, and they've loaded up these cards correctly. And it's going to be something really – it's a period of growth for the UFC. Like, they'll kind of ride the wave of football season because football season kills everybody because, how many millions of people watch the Patriots and the Steelers on Thursday night out of nowhere. So –
I think got an 18 rating or something like that. So
something nuts, like 27 million people or –
apparently the Steelers bench was listening to the game too. So
yes, the headsets were not working. And by the way, I mean, with my other job, I am heavily involved in the NFL. That happens every single place imaginable. Like, for example, you could be the Miami Dolphins. You could go to Chicago, and you'll still hear static or some dude ordering a pizza over the other line, as Brian Billick said. This weekend to somebody. I mean, it's amazing. In 2015, me and you can talk to each other from 1,000 miles away, record a podcast, put it up on the internet for everyone to hear. But in a stadium where with these nice pristine Bose headsets, the Steelers are getting the Patriots radio broadcast instead of their own dedicated hard line to the booth. That's my just little rant on that.
That's all good. You get everything on the TFM live podcast. A little bit of everything.
Yes. Hey, if people want to tweet at us at BCoyle11, you're at your SS Sports Talk.
Yeah, correct? SS Sports Talk. Yep.
All right. Good. It's been a while. I got it right though.
No, you got it right.
So you can tweet at us, and any questions you want us to talk about, we can run through stuff, any UFC stuff, MMA stuff. If you want to learn more about both of us, you can do that too. Anything you guys want, we will answer. And then UFC 195 Saturday, January 2nd. So post-playoff NFL playoff games, you can watch Robbie Lawler and Carlos Condit beat the hell out of each other.
Is that all?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. But again, great lineup in December. We just have to get there healthy, and I think it's going to be a really fun time to talk about and write about mixed martial arts as it gets bigger and bigger as we go along. And there's one thing, it's before we close out this podcast, is there anything else you wanted to talk about, Sean? Anything we should mention?
Well, I want to throw a little bit to piggyback on what you were just saying right there was that, I mean, I kind of got on a rant a little bit earlier, but just from the booking wise of the UFC, it tells me at least they have a pulse on what is, what's going on out there with events and everything, and they're doing this smartly and not just trying to just jump into competition with football, knowing how it is, and like, hey, we're gonna put all these big events on it, and possibly they're staggering the events out, still putting on good events. Don't get me wrong, but then you got, like we were talking about, you got the UFC 194, the fight, the Ultimate Fighter finale, the 11th and 12th that weekend there, kind of a downswing on the football end of it with college football coming to an end, kind of the NFL there. So kudos to the UFC and whoever looking at that schedule there instead of trying to be, hey, look, we got all this momentum, let's keep it going. I think we're better than the NFL or football. We can get those ratings still. Instead of taking that, they kind of dropped it back a little bit. Still great cards, but not trying to go into straight competition and possibly hurting what they've built so far.
Yeah, I mean, if you take on the NFL, you're going to lose unless you're part of the NFL Players Association or Tom Brady. But also we forgot to mention, we mentioned earlier in the podcast, the Dillashaw-Cruz fight, which is going to happen, UFC Fight Night Boston on January 17th. And that's a big deal. Dominic Cruz hasn't been a guy that's been able to fight for the past couple years. I mean, with these ACL injuries and the way it's worked, but we're now finally getting the Dominator back. And TJ Dillashaw, after his easy title defense at UFC Chicago, this is a really fun, I'm excited because speed kills, and you're gonna have to watch this thing in slow motion.
Yeah, you have to watch the replay probably just find out what exactly happened.
These guys are incredibly fast, incredibly strong, and as long as Dominic Cruz makes it to this fight, which I really hope he does because he's a really tremendous fighter. Another fun, this is more cards that UFC fans, these matchups, these guys are getting to this point where when you look at them, you're like, wow, this is the deepest roster that the company's ever had, and we can put on these fights now and again. Anthony Showtime Pettis also comes back on this card against Eddie Alvarez as well. So that's going to be good. But as we mentioned, as the UFC kids capitalizing on this momentum, putting good, hard fights together. And I want to emphasize good fights because there is a fight this weekend, tonight.
There's a fight this weekend?
On Showtime, yes, there is. Believe it or not, even though you've heard nothing about it because it's a dead in the water fight, Floyd Mayweather is fighting against Andre Berto.
No, that's this weekend?
Yeah, that is this weekend. Yeah, the weigh-in was yesterday, and I feel bad because Showtime had this big contract, with Floyd Mayweather, and he decided to, fight somebody who's 3-3 in his last fights.
Yeah,
to tie Rocky Marciano's 49-0 record.
Hey, you got to make sure you get the 49-0. I guess that's what he's trying to make sure. Hey, at least I tied the record, and then maybe the 50th will be, a quote unquote toss up. But I thought what was funny was, I think it was ESPN or Fox Sports was doing a diagram like the common opponents or whatever it was. Yes. And there are two common opponents. Of course, Mayweather beat him. And Berto lost to both of them, knocked out in the third round by one of them.
Yeah.
And this is a guy who Mayweather's trying to talk up as, oh, he's a legitimate contender. He's got come on, Mayweather, give us a break. You know what you did? It's 49-0. That's what you're trying to get to. So you got the tie, and I don't even know if he's got any more big money fights in him.
I know he's going down to only $33 million for this fight, which is, Come
That's
on.
a big cut. I mean, how's he going to live off? I mean, after what did he get last time? 400?
Yeah, something.
400 million or something like that?
Yeah.
It's a big pay cut.
It just shows how mixed martial arts is slowly overtaking the sport of boxing, which is unfortunate because the sweet science is a great thing too.
Yes.
It really is. But
Well, it's an aspect of mixed martial arts. I mean,
yes, exactly. The most entertaining, if you ask some people. But Floyd, when you have to talk up your own opponent, you done screwed up, kid. You screwed up. All right.
Not only that, but also you're talking about how Aldo's not really helping out with the promotion of the fight there. What has Berto done? Berto's hurt this fight.
Yeah. He's literally, because I feel bad for him too, because he's getting a good payday out of it.
Yeah.
He's getting a meager $3 million out of this fight. But it's just unfortunate because the guy, nobody cares. Nobody cares.
This fight might not go the distance, believe it or not. So you Mayweather fans that always say the fights go the distance, or the Mayweather haters, this one actually might end quicker than the decision.
Yeah, surprisingly enough. I think we've spent already too much time talking about a bad boxing fight anyway.
We probably talked more than the fight will last.
Yeah, could be. So I want to mention a couple of things. If you never heard us before and you listen to this podcast, if you haven't heard it enough already, which we just want to make sure that you get it, thefullmountmma.com. That is where me and Sean write about mixed martial arts. Plenty of stuff. You can follow us on Twitter at The Full Mount. Just click follow. You'll get all of our stories. Everyone that we write will just be right there for you, so you don't even have to double check the website. It's nice and easy. We're going to be all of these things are going to be on YouTube. We'll post links on fullmountmma.com of how to get to our YouTube page. Make it nice and easy for all these podcasts and potential video interviews. Like you said, you'll be going up to UFC Orlando. So in December, I think we may have some interviews with some fighters as well. If you ever want to me and you ever take a trip to Vegas in the near future, we could end up doing that too.
Yep.
So who knows?
About a live podcast from Vegas, huh?
That would be good. Live from UFC 194. That would be a fun time. But plenty of stuff on the site at BCoyle11 for me on Twitter, at SS Sports Talk for Sean. And Sean covers a lot of different things. So you're not only just getting pure MMA stuff, you're also getting some great opinions on some other things, including the traffic in South Florida, which I didn't know you also covered that as well, Sean.
Well, I had to this morning because for some reason they decided on a Saturday to shut down 3 lanes on 95 to do some repair work on the roads. Saturday was a great day to do it. Oh,
yes. Florida road work. That is something I do not miss being down in South Florida. You can follow me on Twitter. I tweet about this stuff. I tweet about football, and I also tweet about, more football and more MMA, so you can follow me there. And I also a depressed Knicks fan. If you want to join somebody, if anybody's listening is also a Knicks fan, you want to wallow in the sadness that is James Dolan's Knicks, you can do that as well. So I want to thank you guys for listening. Sean, anything you also want to say to the people out there?
No, just thank you for listening to the TFM Live podcast. And as always, Brian, I appreciate you. And make sure you check out thefullmountmma.com.
Thank you, Sean. Listen to the guy, thefullmountmma.com. This has been the TFM Live podcast.
The TFM Live podcast was brought to you by thefullmountmma.com. For all your latest news and rumors of the UFC, go to thefullmountmma.com today. Follow us on Twitter.